Darkcast Network, indie pods with a dark side.
Hi, this is Jenna.
And this is Kelly.
You're listening to ODFM.
This episode is One Darold from Murder. This story is one that my friend Megan wrote in. She sent in this story, and this is the story of Darold Stenson, who is her second cousin.
Oh.
And he is a convicted murderer. She doesn't remember ever meeting him. His name is Darold, so it's like Daryl and Harold in one name.
I'm sorry, what is Darold?
Darold. Yeah. But, I know. I'm trying not to laugh at it too. I'm like, okay, this is my friend's
All right,
family.
red flag. If you meet someone named Darold.
It sounds kind of like a Southern name. I'm hoping it's not a family name because I think it's okay for me to make fun of. But, Darold.
Darold. Okay. All right.
So she doesn't remember meeting Darold, but she thinks she may have been only about 5 at the time of his crime. So Darold's father was Megan's grandfather's brother, her second cousin, basically.
I'm going to trust you on that because that confuses me. So
I know.
Yes.
We were like, is that great uncle? Grandfather's brother. Yeah, it's something. She's related.
Good.
So
cool.
he was up in the Walla Walla, Washington area. So that's not where she grew up. She grew up in Montana. I know.
Okay.
Walla Walla, Washington. So she wrote, this is a quote from her. I don't really remember knowing anything about Darold and the murders until I was a teenager. It wasn't really something we talked about as a family, or if we talked about it, I was just a little child, so maybe it wasn't appropriate. I remember being shocked. Probably not.
Let's all sit by the fire and talk about Darold.
Yeah, good old Darold.
Tell me a story. That's bad.
So she also says, I remember being shocked when I first heard about it because I remember Darold's parents as the nicest people. Oh, how could their son do this to his wife and business partner? Yeah. So I'll tell you more of Megan's kind of story about it after I tell you what actually happened so that I don't give away the story before you get the details. All right. So in the early hours of March 25th, 1993, again, that's when we would have been graduating high school. So we're much older than little Megan.
Yes. Oh my. Okay.
Darold called 911 from his home to report that his wife and business partner had been shot. A deputy sheriff soon arrived at the scene and was directed by Darold to the body of Frank Horner. Frank appeared to have died from a gunshot wound to his head, and then Darold took the deputy to a bed within his home in which his wife Denise was lying with what appeared to be a bullet wound to her head. Good Lord.
So wait, they were both killed in his house?
Yeah.
The business partner was at house.
Yes, and you'll get to hear about that. Yeah. And Denise later died at the hospital. Darold told the deputy that Frank had arrived at his office earlier that day to sign paperwork relating to a business deal. His office was located right next to his house on his land.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, and Darold apparently was an exotic bird farmer. Yeah, so like think ostriches. I know, bizarre, in Walla Walla, Washington.
This is a very unique person.
It is.
His name is Darold.
Darold.
He lives in Walla Walla, Washington.
With the exotic bird farm.
He has an exotic bird farm.
Yes. He was arrested and charged with aggravated first-degree murder. At the trial on the charges, the state's theory of the case was that Darold had killed his wife to collect life insurance proceeds, and it was something like, some articles said it was $400,000. Other articles said he was going to gain about $800,000. So it was one of those.
Would have bought him a lot of birds.
Would have gotten a lot of birds. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Good point.
That's a motive. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Birds are expensive. And then
birds are expensive.
And then he killed Frank to get out from under a debt he owed Frank. To also
2 birds with one stone. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop myself.
It was also perfect because then he could frame Frank for the murder of his wife. Basically, Darold and Frank had been embroiled in a dispute over the cost of ostriches.
Okay.
Frank's widow, who, this is funny because her name is also Denise. So this can get...
This is very, I'm sorry, this is very serious. I just seem to have the giggles right now. Okay.
There's so many Denises.
The other Denise.
The other Denise. So she testified that Darold persuaded the couple, her and Frank, to invest their life savings of $48,000 in ostriches, but the big birds never materialized. I know. So maybe another red flag is happening here.
Don't put your money in the ostriches.
Unless you see the ostriches first. Unless they're there.
Always make sure you see the ostriches first. Always.
Yeah. Emus even more so. Because they're probably even more rare. I don't know.
Oh my God. Okay.
I know. Crazy. Okay, so 2 key pieces of forensic evidence that tied Darold to the shootings were, 1, there was gunshot residue found inside the front right pocket of jeans that he was wearing when the officers arrived. And 2, blood splatter on the front of those jeans was consistent with Frank's blood protein profile. Ooh, that's hard to say.
Dude, change your clothes.
Change your clothes, Darold.
Change your clothes.
Well, here's what Darold said. He said that when he discovered Frank's body, he kneeled next to it, and that's how the blood splatter got there. But
did he kneel on him? Like, how
no. And blood splatter doesn't work like that. Like, you can't. That would be blood pooling, you know.
What?
I don't know.
That doesn't even make sense.
No. So an expert witness testified at trial that some of the blood spatter on the jeans could not have been deposited.
Miraculously lifted up into the air and deposited on him after the fact.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and the remainder of the evidence presented was all largely circumstantial. So that was kind of the only evidence they had against him.
That's all they had, huh?
Yeah. Even though,
feathers left around. They could.
No, because the ostriches weren't there.
They didn't exist.
He wasn't even going to give them those. I mean, come on. But so he goes to trial, and a jury finds him guilty on both counts of aggravated first-degree murder, and the trial court sentenced him to death, which is kind of crazy. Wow. I know. He was scheduled to be executed by lethal injection on December 2008 in Walla Walla.
Walla Walla.
I know, but he was only 8 days away from being executed on death row when new evidence prompted a judge to issue a stay of execution. You do not get educated.
Wait, did an ostrich show up and was like, I am a witness.
I have something to say.
Exactly.
Okay, so then, but the evidence was kind of interesting, and I'll put this on the website too, but there was a photograph taken in 1994. So remember, the killings were a year before this. It was in 1993. Okay. There was a picture of the sheriff's detective sergeant. His name was Monty Martin. Oh, these people and their names.
Monty Martin.
So he's M squared.
Is he a superhero also, or has like a second? You know how they all have like the...
They do, have superpowers and names to go with them. Well...
superpowers and names to go with them. Anyway, I'm sorry. Off topic.
So in the photograph, he's wearing the jeans that were said to be worn by Darold the day of the murders.
The sheriff's deputy?
Yeah, sheriff's deputy.
Wore the killer's jeans.
Yes. And the reason he said he wore them, he said it was at the request of a contracted forensic exam. Oh my God, I've only had one glass of wine. Okay.
Are you sure?
I know. A contracted forensic examiner to see whether the blood could have gotten on them from Stenson kneeling by the victim. So he was supposedly wearing them to see how blood could have gotten on them.
Wait, what?
I know.
Okay.
Come on, you don't mess with evidence.
Have you? Okay. I've seen Dexter, the whole series.
I love Dexter. I'm reading all those right now. Yes. Anyway.
Oh, I think I read the first 2.
Yes. I'm only reading the first one. Yeah.
Like when they do those, they try to recreate what happened in a closed environment in a laboratory.
Right.
They don't dress the police officer in the clothes, in the actual clothes.
Evidence. Yeah.
What?
I know.
Not the smartest. Many questions.
I know. So, well, there's more answers. So, apparently after he did that, after he wore them, then the pants were sent to the FBI for gunshot residue test afterwards.
Well, that's all blown out of the water now. That's
right. And as he's wearing them, the pockets are pulled out. So they could have been exposed to anything. And apparently when they did the gunshot residue test, it showed 4 microscopic particles of the type that are emitted when a gun is discharged. And that was in the pocket, seen in the photo. But apparently the FBI lab they sent it to also has, I don't know where I wrote this, but also has a gun range within the building. And particles can be found anywhere within the building. So it could have cross-contaminated. Oh. So, and when the cop wore those pants, you can clearly see in the picture he doesn't have gloves on.
Does it say what the picture was of, or what was it for, or like they just?
He just says it was because this forensic examiner told him to wear them. And so he thought the examiner's like, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Hey, do me a favor. Put these on.
Put these on. Yeah.
Put these on.
And the examiner had turned the pocket out during that photograph to visually inspect for gunshot residue. I don't shoot guns, so I have no clue if you can actually see it. Like, does it leave a little black trace of something, from the gunpowder?
I don't know. They don't show that on CSI. They do, but they like zoom in, and that there's like computer graphics. Right. I don't know.
Well, and M Squared said that it was standard practice for law enforcement to wear gloves for the purpose of protection.
I thought you were going to say it was standard practice for him to wear the murderer's clothes. I was like, wow.
This is how we play dress up on Halloween. But that would be massive. I mean, think of the things you could have for your Halloween parties.
I can't, right? I'm seriously, all these things keep going into my mind when you first said so the police officer was wearing the killer's pants, and I'm sitting there going, like, he was at work and he had a date and he spilled coffee, so he was like, what can I wear? I'll grab these.
Let me grab these bloody pants, because that'll be good.
Maybe she won't notice that as much as the giant coffee stain. I don't know.
And wait till you see the picture, because the pants are like 3 or 4 sizes too big for the cop, so he's having to hold them on. I know. It's so weird. Why would you think this is a good idea? I don't know. I know.
Okay, sorry.
But Mark M Squared saw the picture like years later, 2008, when during this trial, and he said he couldn't believe he wasn't wearing gloves. So he himself was shocked at himself, but So
I didn't mind that I was wearing the pants, but why wasn't I wearing gloves?
Why didn't I wear my gloves? I'm
still totally cool with the fact that I was wearing the pants. This still does not bother me.
I know.
Years later.
So to get a new trial, Darold's lawyers would have to prove that the prosecution didn't provide the defense with documents like the photos that would shed doubt on the FBI test results. So they never did show that photo to the defense side. So the defense side could claim they didn't have all the information.
Yeah, that's a no-no.
Yeah, so
that's a big no-no.
Yeah. So they overturned his conviction and ordered a new trial. So you got a brand new trial. Justices were asked to review the photographs. And we've already talked about those funny photographs.
We've already talked about that.
Yeah, and they didn't perform a gunshot residue test, they found out, even though they had implied it during the first trial. So, yeah, tisk.
Come on, guys.
Buddy, don't lie.
You had one job.
I know, one job. Well, maybe a lot of jobs hooked onto that one job, but still.
None of them were let people try on the pants.
Yeah, and they did say, so the Hoover building where the FBI lab contained 2 shooting ranges. This is where I had written it. So itself was contaminated with gunshot residue all over, because it has 2 shooting ranges within the lab area. Yeah.
Well, okay, I feel like that's a big problem in itself, right?
Yeah, you might want to put things exclusively away from each other to keep things very clean.
Yes, lab area and practice area should be 2 separate areas.
Yeah, unless you're testing.
Why do we know this?
I don't know. Unless you're testing, I guess, bullet trajectories and all that, but that should be a different room altogether than.
Dexter had his own space. I don't understand.
Come on, people.
This is the FBI. Dexter at least had his own space.
Dexter was amazing. He was very clean, apparently, compared to everybody else. But it did come back that after testing, there was only 4 grains of gunshot residue. And unless there's a massive amount of gunshot residue, it's insignificant anyway. So it wouldn't have had any significance if it had been put into trial. And then that way he might not have gotten convicted on it. But so he's granted a new trial, and the new prosecutors announced they wouldn't seek the death penalty. So that's good for him. At least he doesn't have to worry about that. Let's see. In an interview with Darold's lawyer, he also raised the idea, get this. This is what they're trying to say really could have happened. Frank's wife, the other Denise, still alive, the widow, they're trying to say that she had odd behavior before she knew her husband was dead, including showing up wearing only a robe to the house where Darold's children were taken. I don't know what that part means, but they're trying to.
What is with the clothing in this story? What is going on? It's true.
It's all about the clothing. I know.
What?
It doesn't make sense.
She showed up in a robe?
Apparently at Darold's children where they were being taken, and I'm not sure why they're not at his house, and it's before the murder. So
was she just so enraged that there were no ostriches that she just flew out of the house in just a robe?
Maybe. She was like, this is what they look like when they run.
Yeah.
White streaks behind them. Yeah. Running down to Darold's house. I don't know. It's so weird. So they're trying to say that she could have been mad enough that she went and killed her husband and her friend Denise at Darold's house, which makes sense. So when reading about this, I read that Frank was heading to Darold's, to sign the business documents on his way to work. And every morning Frank had to catch an early morning ferry as a carpet layer in the Seattle area. And in order to make the ferry and still have time to meet with Darold beforehand, he left his house at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And it only took about 5 minutes to get to Darold's. So that would mean if Frank's wife was the killer, she would have had to follow him or get to Darold's house first and worry about encountering Darold and then, shoot Frank when he's there and then kill her best friend. Apparently she called the other Denise was her best friend. She'd have no reason to kill her. So
are we sure there was nothing between Frank and the other Denise, the husband and the victims?
Right. The two victims. It didn't sound like it.
Okay. This wasn't kind of a
love.
Yeah, he walked in on something and
I know, it makes you wonder.
Right?
But then again,
Darold was mad, and then he told the other Denise, and she came running over in her robe. That bastard!
Well, but then again, he shot Frank outside, so it wasn't like he caught Frank with Denise inside.
Was he climbing back? Well, no, he couldn't have been there for very long because he just went to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, supposedly that's what Darold said, but it doesn't sound like.
Oh, right. We don't actually know.
Right. I think Darold's just making up shit, but Darold's trying to find some reason. But in the retrial, and this is 20 years after the murder, jurors heard testimony.
20 years later was the retrial?
Was the retrial. Yeah, it took that long for him to get a new trial. They did a testimony from the doctor who did the autopsy on Frank, and they found evidence that he'd been beaten and dragged, like we had said, but the wounds on his head were separate from the gunshot, and the injuries were consistent with being hit by nunchucks. And Darold, Darold is a martial arts expert.
Okay. So, all right. Well, then that makes sense because the average person, I don't think, just has those available to them.
Yeah. But it seems like an odd choice of weapon in my mind. Do I grab the baseball bat, the knife, or the nunchucks? Obviously, the nunchucks.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Right. Nunchucks.
Get
to kill the hoe. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. Isn't it weird? I'm like,
oh my God.
But I guess he was like, do I finally get to use my martial arts in real life? And I can.
Here's my one chance.
So his retrial included more than 300 exhibits. I don't know what, but a lot of stuff. It allowed for testimonies the jurors did not hear when they sentenced him to die in 1994. So a lot of new information. And it did take the jury at least 4 days to deliberate, but they still found him guilty of 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. He still got a better deal out of it because he's not getting the death penalty. And apparently, one time when he was going to be put to death, it was only a few minutes before they were going to reject him that they gave a stay.
Wow, he really lucked out then.
Yeah, so he'd been through it a few times. But Megan, who submitted the story, so now this is her part of it, so you can hear kind of her point of view. She says, from chatting with my dad about it, it sounds like Darold was always a bit odd. My dad remembers a time when they went to North Dakota to visit his Uncle Percy, who was Darold's father. Apparently, Darold got a hold of my grandmother's car keys and buried them in the yard.
What?
I don't know why.
Okay.
I know. She said the family had to search for the keys and dig them up, delaying the departure.
Don't go, Grandma. I shall bury your keys.
I'm going to bury your goddamn keys if you try to leave. So weird. And her dad also mentioned that Darold also seemed to be out for insurance money all the time. Apparently, one of Darold's big boats sunk, and he was able to receive some insurance money out of it. He claimed many large, expensive items were on the boat. But after the murder, Darold's
Is that where the ostriches were?
Oh, good point.
On the boat?
They were like having a party.
They were all on the boat.
Yeah, they're in the ocean.
It all ties in.
They were whale watching.
They were whale watching. Walla walla.
See? And now ostriches can float. So apparently, she says, after the murder, Daryl's property was searched and those items were found in the house, fraudulently claimed on insurance. So he was always trying to find a big payday, it sounds like. Darold. So maybe another tip is don't combine two names to make one name.
Yeah, that's a bad.
Daryl and Harold. I've heard others, and I'm trying to think of one that I heard recently that was so bad. And I was like, just go with one or the other. It was like,
or like first name and middle name. Don't
right.
combine.
You have to combine them. It's hard to say. It is weird. It feels a little.
Every time you said Darold, I felt like you were like about to be like, oh, sorry, we'll edit that out. That was wrong. And I'm like, no, she's actually saying it right.
Darold. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
I don't know. Maybe another tip, but hopefully it's not a family name. Or, it could be, I think they're probably German. Maybe it's a German name. I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe
I guess that's possible.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe I'm making fun of a name that's legit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be a first class ticket to hell for both of us.
Yeah, I was going to hell anyway, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we'll just go in class.
Yeah, I don't have any friends left here anyway, so she'll be like, well, I've written that one off.
Right. There was that.
But I appreciate her story, and I hope others don't think we're going to make fun of them. That story was amazing, and it was really fun to research. So kind of crazy that she's related to a murderer.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No, I honestly can't. I honestly can't. That's crazy.
Kind of crazy. So, yeah, I can imagine why it wouldn't be something you would talk about at family vacations.
Right, as you're all sitting around the bonfire.
Remember Darold?
Whatever happened to Darold?
Whatever happened to Darold? Oh.
You didn't hear what happened to Darold?
Oh,
and the ostriches?
Yeah.
And the grandma.
We're not going to talk about Darold. Who got my keys back? Oh, damn it, Darold.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. So that's my story.
Thanks for listening to another episode of ODFM, hosted by Kelly DeVries and Jenna Swanson. Production and editing by Kelly DeVries. Theme music by Eric Swanson. ODFM is a satirical true crime podcast for entertainment purposes only. The stories you hear are serious and true. The comments and opinions are not. We apologize if any of our content is harmful or disrespectful.
Hey Oddies, thanks for listening to another episode of ODFM. If you're a longtime listener, hey, we cannot thank you enough for your continued support. And if you're a new listener, thanks for giving us a try. If you like us, please drop us a like, subscribe, or rate us so we can share our stories with more people around the world. And if you'd like more information, like links to our podcast and socials, along with our Patreon fan page, those links are all on Linktree under ODFM Podcast. That's linktr.ee/ODFM Podcast. Side note, you guys, we're obsessed with fan art, and we love making things with it, like stickers for our fans. So if you'd like us to use your designs, send it to us at odfmpodcast@gmail.com. And if we use your design, we'll be sure to send you a sticker.